both of us have been in relationships where we stayed longer than we should have stayed.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely true. And I feel, both embarrassed about that and sad about the years that I consider quite a waste, but I'm also determined to engage in that, that period of reflection where I learn from my mistakes and want to make sure that I never repeat them again. So that's where that whole idea of a critical incident debriefing comes from.
But before we get into that, so your first relationship was a marriage because when you were 20 years old, you got married and you stayed married for 18 years.
Yes, it's so painful to hear you say that.
And for me, I had a high school girlfriend from like 16 to 21. We broke up then. And then I had another relationship from like 25 to 30, and then another one from 35 to 38, somewhere around that time, or 34 to 37, somewhere around that time. So mine, I never got married, but I have been in 3 relationships. So just to give a context.
You're not bragging about that? Like, it's not competitive, like the bigger screw up, you or me? Okay.
Well, you were the bigger screw up because you got married.
And collectively, longer period of time. For me,
yeah,
18
combined.
Years.
Yeah, 5, 6. Yeah, mine was like 11 years in relationship.
Lucky.
But it was still painful to go through 3 of those. They felt like mini divorces because they were pretty long-term relationships.
Yeah, I could see why they would be excruciatingly painful, to be honest. And not just for us as men, but I think, really anybody, because we're all getting together with someone with the greatest of hopes. I mean, we're excited. We feel happy that somebody loves us. At least we think that they love us. Mm-hmm. And we think that they like us. And then to see it all come crashing down, it's just very disappointing. And that's why, I've devoted my future years to trying to help people just come to grips with this and start understanding it as it's happening instead of needing 18 years to figure it out.
But I will say the difference, because we obviously have generational differences. You got into a relationship, your first one, obviously to get married. That was the goal. Mm. Like for me, yeah. I was in high school. I was 16 years old. And I didn't really know where it was going to go. And I actually, when I was younger, had a pretty sour view of marriage just because it didn't look fun. It looked very boring and uninteresting, and kind of like people who got married seemed to have stale relationships.
And I'm guessing you're talking, first of all, about family experiences, but also just observing friends and neighbors around you.
Yeah, just observing it. It seemed like, marriage is hard work. It was just more of like, it seemed like more of a struggle than it did like a fun time of 2 people like dating. So, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do.
And like for you, did you have it differently because you wanted to get married right away?
Well, like you, I had no idea what I was doing. So I didn't know where it was going to go, but I presumed that it was going to be wonderful, that nobody would want to marry me if they weren't crazy about me, just absolute president of my fan club. And I knew I had that kind of love to give. And unfortunately, I partnered up with someone who, in hindsight, it's still somewhat painful to admit, but she just wasn't that into me.
But she was at first.
No, I don't think she ever was. I think that
really?
I really had this low bar, and that low bar, we've joked about it before and laughed and everything, but it was coming out of my high school years, the idea that any woman wanted to spend her life with me and be seen in public with me, and she was pretty. It was like I was so flattered and excited about that prospect that was enough. And of course, now I know that was incredibly immature and naive and uninformed.
But she liked you enough to see you, to like be
and marry me,
and to marry you.
Yeah, which is crazy.
So what was she not liking about you? I guess, or like, what do you mean by she didn't like you? Like, how do you find that out after?
Honestly, I can't say. I wish I could say, oh, and I found out one day when she said something, but really the evidence was always there before me. It was always there.
Like, what was some of that evidence?
Um, if you looked at our early photos of our relationship, I'm always leaning into her, trying to get a hug or a kiss or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
He's like this.
yeah, yeah. Were you there?
I took the photo.
Because it was always like that. And I think in hindsight, she found if on a scale of 1 to 10, how affectionate ideally would you like to be in a relationship? I was probably an 8, and she was probably a 2 or 3.
Do you think that had to do with you specifically, or do you think that that was something that she was just that way in her whole life?
No, I over time I came to realize that it was true in all of her relationships, and it was true after that, after we were finished. And so I don't think that this is a moral issue. I don't think it's the result of trauma. I just think some of us are just more comfortable being at one end or the other of that spectrum, or finding our place on that continuum, wherever it is. And I think one handy thing for anybody would be just to compare yourself to what you see in the movies or on TV or around you, and even your own parents, because just to accept that you're more comfortable at a given spot on that continuum, and to observe that the other person is whatever they are. And I think I'm as guilty as anybody of being disappointed or even irked by what I saw was a flaw, and then trying to get her to change.
So how would you try to get her to be more affectionate?
Yeah, I would be verbally encouraged. Come on, give me a kiss. Or, hey, how come every time I try to give you a hug, you move away? And pointing it out as if it was a flaw, but really not so much a flaw as, I guess, in my own naive way, I was trying to begin a conversation. And
without having a direct conversation.
Well, without having the knowledge of how to explore that and how to really get into it without being critical or blaming or any of that kind of stuff, because I just was having a hard time. And just with this one topic of affection, there were others, but just this one topic, it was hard for me to accept, in the same larger sense, that it was harder for me to accept that this person I found myself with just wasn't that into me. And it explained, when I did realize it, it was painful, but it was also calming, because I felt as though I was finally accepting life on life's terms.
And how long into the relationship did you accept that?
I think it was around year 15, to be honest with you.
So is that what you would call denial for 15 years?
Yeah, I think I was in denial, and that's a really fair way to call it. I was just not wanting to accept it. I kept thinking if I tried harder, if I was just more patient or more affectionate, which was disastrous, if I was affectionate in the ways she wanted me to be, if I was perhaps more helpful around the house with chores, searching even before the book was written, searching for her love language, like how can I possibly communicate that to her? And what happened one day, she was mad at me about something, and she said, "You don't love me. I know you don't love me."
She said that to you?
Yeah. And I said, this was right around I think this was early, year 13. So I stayed for another 5 years after that. I said, what would you want me to do such that if I were willing to do it, you would feel loved? What would it take for you to feel loved?
And that's something that you would say now, as who you are now, like that would be it.
I would say that in any relationship. If my wife said that to me now, I've been together with her 31 years, and if she said, I'm just not feeling love lately, I would say, well, what's missing, or what is it you are needing? And I would try to suss out, how do we get over this what I would think would be a temporary condition, whereas in my former marriage it was often repeated, and it was more of a chronic, steady state situation, the status quo. And so when she said, I don't feel loved, you don't love me, and then I said what I said about what would it look like, what would you need me to do, and she said, I don't know. And I've been guilty my whole life, I think, about laughing inappropriately, and this was no exception.
And you laughed?
I started laughing, and I said, I've been trying to figure out for 13 years how to persuade you that I am in love with you. And now I find out you don't even know what it is. I've been guessing at trying one thing after another, and with gift giving and doing things for you and saying things that are loving and behaving in a loving way, looking at you in a loving manner. And I think for her to say she didn't know rather revealed an awful lot of absurdity of the whole situation. That I was like playing that children's game, Battleship, trying to guess, how to hit the target without really knowing what I was doing. But I was in denial for so long, and then coming out of denial. Yes, it started at that time, at that moment, perhaps, to come out of denial, but actually coming out took years more. And it was really about my coming out of denial was really accepting who she was as a human being, instead of clinging to the potential. She just has so much potential. This relationship has so much potential. I was pretty sure that if we could just hit that potential, wow, this thing could really take off.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really common thing for lots of people, because I definitely relate to that.
You do?
I feel like someone saw, my second girlfriend, I feel like saw my potential and I was failing, and I could feel her disappointment. Because, for instance, like, I was trying to be a writer, and she wasn't that thrilled about that because there's not much money and things like that. But then I got a job working with children with special needs, and she was like just over the moon. It was like, I was like the star boyfriend.
What did she like about it?
I think that it was just a full-time job, and I was working with kids, and it was a step in the more like way that she wanted me to be, probably.
I think that's,
I don't know if that's true or not. I'd have to ask her.
It's a fair way to say it for most of us, that if that potential had resulted in the other person being what I wanted, then I would have been happy, instead of their potential resulting in some new version of themselves that grew into something that I did not see coming and I wasn't really sure I liked. That would have been a different thing. But it occurs to me right now that when we fall in love with someone and their potential, we're really not, in that moment, we're really not loving the person we're with.
Yeah.
We're loving this future version of them that, well, once they finish school, and once they get a job, and once they settle down and stop doing coke, and once they, and the list goes on, then this is going to be a great relationship. But it's not that. And it very rarely ever falls out that way, because all of us humans are very bad at foretelling the future. Yeah.
And you say now that if you are to get into a committed relationship, that you cannot fall in love with their potential. You have to fall in love with the person as they are now, flaws and all, and see what's lovable in them at this present moment.
That sounds pretty good. Did I actually say that?
Yes.
Wow, I like
probably in a better way than I.
No, I think it makes so much sense because you always say, like, after the 3-month mark, that's called the narcissistic timeline, where you're in, like all the dopamine's hitting and you're having all the serotonin, whatever's flushing through your body. Whatever great drugs your body's making that week.
Yeah, and whatever you love about yourself, you see in them, and it's just your mirror, and then eventually that starts fading away, and then you start seeing them for the actual person, and then it's like, that's when you decide, can you actually
love that
love
person.
that person without all the.
And that's a discovery, right? Because, you might, okay, this is going to be personal.
Oh,
And not
okay.
just about me, but also about my wife. I'm kind of a snob. At least I come across that way. But I don't think I mean to be that way. I don't look down my nose at others. It's just, I really like great food.
Yeah.
I really like beautiful clothes. And I really like certain things like that are just associated with snobbery, like certain great books or
Art.
opera,
Yeah.
collecting art, that kind of thing. So I come across, I think, as a snob, but really what I'm not looking for. I realized in hindsight when I met my wife and got to know her, I realized I wasn't looking for the perfect girlfriend. You know how people have those lists of all these qualities they're looking for.
Yeah.
That I realized I really wasn't looking for that. I was looking for a meaningful relationship, and what people 100 years ago called animal magnetism, or sometimes people call it chemistry, or nowadays, more likely than not, we're calling it a meaningful connection or a meaningful relationship. I really wanted that. And that's the sum of our parts, right? It's not about her. It's not about me. It's about who are we together. And in my first marriage, who we were together was not a good thing. It was not, nobody was happy. And I think if, anybody thinking about marriage, even from a very religious point of view, we wouldn't want to go forward into a marriage and make it a thing if we could see that, oh, we're both going to be unhappy for the rest of our lives if we do this. So I always had that notion that we would be happy, but with my current wife, I realized I really liked her just the way she was. And yeah, a lot of that, I have to say, was narcissistic. Sure, she liked opera. She liked beautiful clothes. She liked not only beautiful clothes, but she liked wearing them. And which is not to say that at the same time, she could put on a baseball cap and a pair of jeans and an old t-shirt and help me with cleaning the garage, for example, or something like that. But I really liked that. I liked that more elitist side of hers. And at the same time, I could see that she made it really clear that she was the sort of woman who, although she could get comfortable with me and clean up the garage, wearing weekend clothes, she would never, if she could help it at least, she would never be seen in public not looking put together. And I realized there's a little bit of snobbery there, and that was different from my snobbishness or my elitism, whatever we're going to call it. And that I really liked that. I didn't have it because I don't feel that way about, my appearance, my bald head. I don't feel that way about my clothes or anything like that. I could just as soon wear a t-shirt and jeans to the office as something, more conservative. But I liked that she was that way because I so enjoyed the parade across the calendar of time, that just to see, oh, what is she going to be wearing this time? What is she going to be doing this time? And I liked that she was so knowledgeable. This was a first for me. And people watching this might laugh at me, but it's true. I just liked how different she was, that she was so good at things I had no idea how to do. She was really knowledgeable about things of which I had no experience and didn't even wish to, but she was really knowledgeable about things like pop culture and pop music. And I really enjoyed listening to her explanations of, why that meant something to her and how that happened in history, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was, every conversation with her was like an exciting visit to a beautiful but foreign country, where you're just learning. And I didn't have to be her. It's not like if if I travel to Germany, I have to learn German and become German to enjoy the trip. But it was a little bit like that. And I think I had become less rigid, more tolerant, and more excited about the unknown, the adventure.
Yeah.
And whereas I think when I was younger, I was insufferably rigid and something of a know-it-all. And so my maturity helped me to have better relationships too.
So do you think that could have been part of it too, like the rigidity and the snobbery and that sort of stuff, maybe with your first marriage where your wife was like seeing that in you and maybe didn't know how to like express it and be like, this
anybody
is
with sense would have avoided me. So clearly she didn't have that.
Okay.
No, I think.
But could those could be additional things aside from just like physical?
I guess what I'm trying to say is I think we all have mannerisms that can be welcome or annoying, depending on the perspective of the other person. So the very things, like I'm a bookworm, for example, and that was the source of endless criticism in my first marriage.
So she didn't like, if you read a book, she'd get upset?
Yeah.
What'd she
Read
say?
too much. I was always reading. What's wrong with me? Why are you always reading?
And what was she doing?
I was reading, so I don't know.
Oh.
But presumably doing whatever she wanted to do.
Do you think that maybe she wanted you to be with her? And because this was something in my relationship.
No, she didn't want to be with me. So thanks for asking that question. It's not like, because if I had said, oh, do you want to go for a walk? The answer would have been no. Do you want to go to a movie? No. Would you be interested in doing anything so long as it doesn't involve me? And she said, maybe. So even that was like the first year or two of our marriage, and even that
was the first year or two?
Yeah, and my denial just continued on, and I just didn't take the information seriously. But
did you do that really quick because you thought that's just the way marriages were? Because I had similar things in some of my relationships, and I was just like, this is just relationships have problems. They're never going to be perfect. There's always going to be like a nagging element. There's always going to be differences that, get on people's nerves. We're close quarters all the time. We're going to bug each other. Like, was that what's going on in your head?
Well, there was a lot of that going on. And in my head, in terms of, that thing we make fun of all the time, that saying that seems like it's so current wherever we go that people are advising us as if we were still 7 years old. Well, relationships are hard work, and I don't think that's true anymore. I think getting ready to be in a great relationship is hard work, because it means I have to work on myself and I have to grow up and I have to develop, as we say here on this podcast, I have to develop a life worth living, where any woman at best could be a wonderful part of my otherwise wonderful life.
Yeah.
But she's not the main thing in the sense of, well, if she loves me or doesn't love me, that's the sun and the moon. And instead, I like the idea of two people getting together to share their lives with each other. So,
but that whole concept of relationships are easy does not go over well for many people, because they have so many beliefs around relationships. Like, I was talking to my friend about it this past weekend, and he's like, well, women are different than men. There's that alone, that alone is good.
Thankfully, because if they weren't, that'd be awkward that first night.
Yeah, that's what I should have said. See, I should have told him that. But he's like, that's just inherently, women have different emotions. They got different things going on. So they're unpredictable. They're unable to like, kind of like, they could maybe react certain ways that could take away the different.
And their emotions, they're all over the map, and it's so unpredictable. No, I think the problem is everybody is who they are, and then they get together with someone who is incompatible fundamentally, and then life is very stressful. And living in a stressful environment with someone who's not right for you, that does take a lot of work, because you're living under chronic stress, and the stress is cumulative. It just adds to it and adds to itself over and over again, and it builds up in your body. And after a while, we're just so miserable that we feel dead inside. Now, you did interrupt me because I was talking to you about the important subject of being a bookworm.
And I was bored.
Then we probably will never get married. But my current wife finds that just so gratifying and so wonderful. So
that you read.
Yeah, and that I read all the time. And I think that that's an example of, that old English saying, one man's meat is another man's poison. Well, what I think, it's so wrong for some woman, but it's so right for another one. And I think that's been reflected in my own experience, that my wife has told me that other men would be uncomfortable with certain aspects of who she is, like her attention to her wardrobe or her grooming or anything like that. And I am the kind of guy who celebrates that. In other words, I just like her just the way she is. I don't need her to change a thing. And yet she is changing. 31 years, people change because at least if you're alive, you're growing and learning and adapting to new situations. And but starting off at least with somebody you like just the way they are gives you, I think, a really good shot of liking that person as they mature, as they age, and as they evolve, to use your word. I think that's a good way of putting it. There's no guarantee. I guess she could have evolved into being a heroin addict.
But the odds were not likely.
Yeah, that was not likely based on the person that I met. Now, in your situation, because you kept saying this was just like your experience.
Yeah, similar. But I was going to say really quick on compatibility, though. It's like, I don't think I think a lot of people I think all these stories of marriage being hard, relationships being hard, whatever you want to say to make it difficult, comes from, like we talk about, people not dating for compatibility, or people not having any idea what they're doing when they go into a dating experience.
Right.
And
because they're dating for pleasure and fun, which is fine. I don't have anything against pleasure and fun, but you're also conducting an ongoing investigation. Is this person merely a recreational date, or are they a recreational date with strong prospects for a long-term meaningful relationship?
But I didn't learn about that until I met you, which was after all my relationships. So prior to meeting you and hearing that, it's like, once you hear it, it's like, oh, simple, that's what I should be doing. But it was always just go with the flow, love will find a way, it'll work itself out, all that sort of stuff. But now that I've had those 3 relationships and I see how they failed in various ways, I did not have a conversation about compatibility. I mean, it's like, we like movies, or we like the same TV shows, or this or that.
It's like saying we like food. We both like food.
Like food and air. But I feel like so many people do not do that compatibility test or have that intentional interview because they just get swept up with the love of the first meeting, and then just get carried away with that.
I know I did, because I just was so needy. I was so needy and lonely and I was craving that kind of meaningful connection with somebody. And sadly, tragically for both of us, I had no idea how to be in an intimate relationship. I don't think, to be a little more self-critical, I observed myself then as a man who didn't know how to be, who didn't know how to share his private thoughts and to be vulnerable, because I was still very guarded and protective of myself. So I didn't know how to do intimacy. I was craving it.
Yeah.
And I think if people could hear me say this, because we can crave things and need things that we still don't have the words to describe. Just because Magellan's wanting to go around the world, that's fantastic. I appreciate that. And all of his men wanted to go for the most part, apparently, because they were all recruits. And he takes off, but oops, nobody thought about the need for vitamin C. And so everybody comes down with, everybody but Magellan, because he had his secret stash of food with vitamin C in it. But everybody else comes down with scurvy, and almost all of his crew die because of scurvy. And it's a horrible death.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing is, historically, nobody knew what vitamin C was back then, and nobody knew about the connection between certain foods and getting that need met, whether you called it vitamin C or something else. They didn't know how to prevent scurvy. So in the same way, modern man has emotional needs, relationship needs that we have no language to express or to even identify within our own minds in the privacy of our own thoughts. To be able to identify those needs and feelings, though it happens to be essential, doesn't it? I mean, in order to know happiness, I have to know all the other feelings that guide me toward happiness.
But sometimes people be like, well, happiness is like a lofty goal
or a fleeting,
fleeting
ephemeral thing that just is meaningless. It's so trivial. It's so superficial. Who would want to be happy the rest of their life?
Yeah.
Well, I've been pretty happy for 31 years,
Yeah.
and it's not like I haven't had disappointments along the way. But in my marriage, I can say, no, I'm supremely satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
I am.
You're one of 10 men on this planet. I don't know.
But you don't mean 1 out of 10, like every 10th
One
man.
out of. Well,
One out of
no, not
the
1 out
10
of
of us
10
in the whole country.
10 of you in the whole planet since this world was alive.
Well,
maybe.
I hope not. I hope it's not that dire, but
I mean, have you met? I don't think I've ever met anyone who says, "Oh, my marriage has gone like this, like a straight line up, essentially, pretty much like this."
You know,
I mean,
hey,
if that's true,
I don't begrudge anybody who would say that, because, first of all, I want everybody to be happy in their marriages. I really do. And that's a cause to which I devote my life. And I think it's a worthy cause for humanity. And it's a cause that, I'm sorry to say, our religions haven't really helped us figure out. But denial comes in many forms, and there are a lot of us, and I was one of those religious people. If you'd asked me during the depths of misery in my own marriage, am I happy in my marriage? I would have said, of course, I'm happy, and I would have gone.
Okay.
I would have defended that, because I wouldn't want you to think badly of my marriage. Or, excuse me, I misspoke. I wouldn't want you to think badly of my religion. I wouldn't want you to think Jesus wasn't the way, because Steve has been trying to sell me on this for so long, and then I find out he's in a really shitty marriage. Well, what good has Christianity done him?
Yeah.
And it's a great question, and the answer is, well, it didn't help at all.
Yeah, I would say it doesn't help many people. I mean, again, that's a wide sweeping statement, but the most religious friend of mine, who's the most religious out of all of us, like goes to church, Jesus is the way, that kind of thing. He just got out of a 6-year abusive relationship where the woman was physically and verbally abusive to him. Finally got away from her after she jumped in the bathtub, strangled him underwater, tried to kill him. And then that was one weekend. Then the following weekend,
that's that inappropriate laugh I have,
drove him in a car going 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, saying that she's going to kill him. And then after that, he got out of that finally. Now he's having sex with a married woman. But I asked him about it. I was like, dude, and he's my friend. I've known him since I was like 5 years old, so I could talk to him however I want to talk to. It's like some people...
You're like brothers.
Yeah, you can't just say this to some people, whatever. But I'm like, I don't care. He says stuff about me. It's like he's got no filter. So I'm going to be like, I have no filter either. So I was like, okay, dude. I was like, you're all into Jesus and this and that. Where do you stand on this? I was like, now you're committing a sin. You're having sex with a married woman. And that's what happened to you in your first divorce. Your wife left you for the neighbor, and you know the pain of that. And I was like explaining all this to him, and he's like, yeah, I know, I'm very like morally conflicted. But so he's aware of it, but he can't stop doing it.
Yeah, because we get to a point where we realize, at least speaking as a former religious person,
Mm-hmm.
or former Christian at least, I think I'm still religious in terms of science and knowledge and reason. But I think you hold on and you hold on and you hold on, thinking if I keep praying or if, asking for a miracle or keep living the way I think God wants me to live,
Mm-hmm.
something's going to break. And I just needed to be patient, and then God would show me the way. And then it get to a point finally where you realize you can't stand the misery anymore.
Yeah.
And you realize, oh, no one is explaining how to do this. No one is helping us humans sort out how we can have a great life or a great relationship in some sort of straightforward way. And again, that's an idea that lights me up and makes me want to do these podcasts, because I want to share with people how they can have a great life, and whether they stay in a church or not, it doesn't matter to me, but to understand that there is a human path to human happiness, and that it's very attainable. It's not meant to be a once every few years kind of experience, or, being happy for other people kind of experience only. It's really achievable to enjoy your life and to enjoy happiness. And it doesn't depend on socioeconomic status or how much money you're making. I think my wife and I have talked about this before. We could be very happy in a studio apartment. We don't really need a house. We don't need the 2 cars that we have. I mean, it would be wonderful to live even a simpler life, but we do need each other. And that is a very fulfilling part of our lives. Now, in the meantime, yeah, I wouldn't say to single people, well, you must have someone else for you to be happy, because I think you've been a great example of somebody who's developing a life worth living and enjoying the heck out of your life.
Yeah, but I would say there's definitely things you got to work through when you're single and alone, and there's impulses that come up and feelings, and you're like looking at other people in relationships, and it's like you're like, I want to be in a relationship, I got to get on the dating apps, or like all this, like it's like a drug addict. It reminds me of like all this like old stuff coming up that you have to do, and it's like just breathe, relax, let it go. And it's like I'm trying to like release all that stuff. Yeah, take a breath, and just to be like, because I know, like, because even like people I've talked to, they're like, well, you're eventually going to meet someone. It's like, it's inevitable. All this work that you're doing with like relationship stuff, you know how to have one, you know how to like create a life. It's just going to happen. But sometimes you want it to happen now because we don't want to wait. And we're just like, we want the thing. And that's the neediness, like that's coming up. But when you kind of work with it and sit with it, and it will pass. It's like that whole thing, like
that feeling is a passing feeling.
Yeah, it's like they say in meditation, like these thoughts are like clouds and they'll eventually dissipate, and you just
visual
kind of let it go. But if you focus on it and you obsess over it, that's when you could start maybe making not the best choices. And also, I want to get that stuff out of me. Like I want to let all that neediness go as much as I can.
I've experienced tremendous relief with my neediness when I transition to a place of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I could, I'm feeling needy.
Yeah.
That's what this is. And now immediately there was a transition in my consciousness from being a person whose neediness had him to a person who had his neediness.
Mm-hmm.
And it just got better and better over time. I would still experience loneliness as a single guy. I would go through long, dry spells of not dating anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, once my consciousness accepted and embraced my humanity, that I was, among other things, I could be needy. I could be emotionally needy and lonely. And wishing that I had that special someone in my life. But I was really clear by then that I didn't need a placeholder. I didn't need a girlfriend. I needed the right girlfriend.
Yeah.
And that changed my thinking altogether. Because the right girlfriend, that means something totally different.
Yeah.
And nobody else can really tell me who she is or what she would look like on the inside or the outside. You just, kind of what your friends have been telling you, you'll meet someone and yeah, but will I be ready is the question when that someone shows up, when not a perfect woman, but the perfect woman for me shows up. And I don't believe for a second that there's only one on the planet. I think that's kind of silly. I think women are so wonderful that there are many, many types of wonder to be found among women. And I can love this woman for all these traits, but then meet a completely different woman and find total satisfaction in that aspect of who she is. And so, it's just that right now with my current situation, I feel so happy. I don't have that wandering eye. I notice other women, of course, but I don't, I'm not craving, like, oof, I really want to spend more time with her. Because what I really want to do is get home and spend time with my wife.
Well, I like what you said too about the placeholder, because even like at this point in my life, I feel like if I get a placeholder girlfriend, I'm not that crazy about her. And I'm just like, well, she just satisfies some needs, but I know it's not long term. You're still kind of intertwining with that person and it's getting deeper. Then when it's something that does come along, then you have this other person to deal with. And then you got to like break up with her or let her go, or even if you're not committed, there's still a separation that happens and a loss. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm just like, right now I have nobody in my life. It's like,
are you enjoying the pleasure of your own company?
It's been the first time so I got out of my last relationship in 2022 and instantly had to hop on the dating apps because I felt so needy. And I had a similar thing in my last relationship with the touch where I would like touch my girlfriend
with physical affection,
and she would just, it was like it made her, she like wasn't that thrilled about it. Or I felt like I couldn't do anything right with it. It was like I was always touching her wrong. So that was like really messed up for me. And granted, who knows what was going on, but I took it all on for my own stuff.
It sort of is for you. I mean, it's whether her reaction is about her or you forgot to clean up that day. It doesn't matter because you still have to deal with it and it's still not working for you.
Yeah. But I stayed because then I was like, ooh, I got to learn how to like touch better because I don't know how to touch properly. So I'm like, I'm like feeling my,
since you were a baby.
Yeah, like feeling my fingers. I'm like, my hands too rough? Am I like going too hard? I'm like trying different like.
Really? You questioned?
Yeah, I was doing all of that. Yeah, because I'm a nut with that stuff. So I was like,
wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, I'd question it. It like really messed me up. Like, so like after that relationship ended, and she did me a favor by leaving. Like, if we ever talk again, I would say thank you because
she broke up with you.
She broke up with me finally, like, because I don't think I would have left. And it also, yeah, that's a whole nother story. But anyways, it was a gift. Like I look at now because it set me on a whole different journey. But anyways, after breaking up in 2022, I was like, got to start dating. So was on the apps probably in the springtime of that year and pretty much had girlfriends, talking to people, not committed relationships, but dated essentially from 2022 until pretty much this year, January 2026. And now I'm completely single. There's nobody that I'm,
You're not even dating.
Not even dating. But I do, and I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, that's
the new phase.
You answered the question I was going to ask. And so you're enjoying this stage of your life. You're enjoying the pleasure of your own company. And I say that phrase, I don't know if it sounds hopelessly old-fashioned, but I have clients who ask me, but aren't I supposed to learn to love myself first? And I usually make a joke about masturbation at that point because I get squeamish when I hear people talk about loving themselves.
Yeah.
That whole notion of loving yourself correlates really highly with narcissism. And I'm just not sure that I don't believe I've ever loved myself.
I know you say that. Yeah. I feel like I have a differing view on that a little bit.
Oh, what do you think?
I think there is. I think I had to heal a lot of stuff that I treated myself really badly.
Well, that's different.
Okay.
That's stop hating yourself.
But then it's an opposite of hate love.
No, it's being comfortable. Could I just be comfortable with myself? I don't even know if I want to.
Or what about peace? Would you say
the opposite? To be at peace with myself.
Yeah.
But to be comfortable, and then to get, for me, the highest state would be, to actually enjoy myself. So whether I'm skiing down a mountain or reading a book or at a water slide, that I'm having fun, I'm enjoying myself, or I'm enjoying the quiet moment in nature or whatever it is, because we're all complicated and we like lots of different things. But I think you were, if I am listening correctly, you were critical of yourself, questioning yourself, and maybe hating on yourself. And I don't want to defend that statement, that the opposite is somehow being comfortable with yourself. But whatever the relationship is between all of those poles of love, hate, and being comfortable, I find being comfortable with myself to be very satisfying. Yeah. And I'm very at ease. And it makes it easy for me to talk really to anybody. And it's, again, a thing I really want for everybody. I want everybody to learn how to enjoy the pleasure of their own company. And that means really developing a life worth living. And it may not include staying with the person that you thought was the love of your life. And when maybe that love was not requited, as Shakespeare said, that love maybe, even on your part, maybe it wasn't even really love. It was just, as we've been talking about, it maybe just a reflection of our own neediness.
Yeah, I think that relationship, my last one, could have been me trying to see the potential in her too. And that maybe put pressure on her. Like, I mean, to be something that she couldn't be. Because I remember one time she's like, I think you need a spiritual girl and I'm not that. And I was like, I didn't feel like I was putting that much pressure, but I could have been.
A spiritual girl, it's funny. I read a handful of books for a few pages each day as part of my meditation. And I'm reading for the second time Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan. And today's reading just happened to include his statement that he saw no conflict between science and spirituality, and that doing science is spiritual. And that because it's the search for truth, it's the search for enlightenment. And I have not been thinking of myself in that way, but it really feels true. It feels right. So I don't know why she would deny being spiritual.
Well, I know. I feel like I get what you're saying for sure.
Because wasn't she a scientist?
No, that was someone else. She was wasn't a scientist.
Well, then she wasn't spiritual.
Yeah. But these people who are in these relationships, we're saying, we know how hard it is to, for me, I remember even going to therapy at the time, and we were in we decided to break up, but stay living together. And even before that happened, I was telling the therapist about some things that were happening. She's like, oh, that sounds like a lot of drama going on and this and that. And I'd be like, oh, it's fine. It's no big deal. I could handle it. That was a lot of things. We've talked about that before.
Yeah. Part of our denial. Yeah.
Or it was part of whatever I grew up as a man thinking I could take the pain. I could handle it. It's okay. It's not phasing me, in denial of it actually affecting me. But then after it all happened, I was really affected by it.
Yeah.
And after we broke up, we decided to stay living together. And my therapist is like, "Do you think that's a good idea?" I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, we still like each other. I mean, but we're able to do it for now, and it wasn't a problem, but it definitely was a problem, and I definitely would not ever do that again. Like stay living and try to be friends
Yeah,
after a
I haven't
relationship
been able to
expires.
ever quite do that. I mean, where I extricate myself from an unsatisfying romance. Oh, but we're just great friends because my friend compartment is made up of men in my life. And as a heterosexual, I find women to be interesting in a different way.
Hmm.
And I can admire them from a distance and I can admire them close up, but I'm admiring part of my admiration and part of the gaze that I project on them is really that of a man looking at a woman with the very predictable results that he's enjoying it at a sexual level, even if it's not sexual in a graphic sense, but just, her lovely voice or her
Hmm.
beautiful hair or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And and then to like dial that down, I don't have a dial like that can dial it down to a platonic
Hmm.
good buddy. She's
Yeah.
just a good buddy of mine.
Well, eventually that dial gets like someone goes in every so often and messes with it, and then that makes it even more complicated.
Gee,
So it's like it's really it was not a fun situation.
doesn't sound like it.
So
I hope it goes better for you. I'm serious about that. This time where you're not dating, I, I want you to be happy, and I know you're a human with the same needs I have, and to be building your life and enjoying yourself, and then to maybe be meeting enjoyable female companions
mhm.
in real life as
Yeah.
opposed to a dating app, and in real life doing the things you like to do.
And that's pretty much what I've been doing now. And then even just talking to women at like a yoga class or something, and like you said, not being like, "Hey, what's your name? You want to go on a date?" It's like being like just having normal passing conversations that are, friendly and just
Enjoyable.
yeah, just enjoying getting to know them. But I definitely see it going better. And I also know more than ever that I'm looking for like a life partner. I would like to get married. Like I had to like reframe my whole idea of what I was even wanting. I don't even think in all my 3 relationships I knew what I wanted. Cause like I said, I was so anti-marriage. It was hard for me to like see an end goal because all the end goal is getting married or just forming or if it wasn't marriage, even forming like a long-term partnership. I didn't really know how to do it. I was just always kind of just going with the flow. Now I feel like I have much more intention behind it. I feel like I know how to build a relationship in a way that does, like you say, like goes up and up and up. It gets better and better and better.
Yeah, that strategic alliance between two people who pool their resources and their knowledge and their skills in order to face life's problems.
Yeah, that and not having any abuse because in all my relationships there was abuse. Maybe not my first one, or actually there's cheating and stuff. So, but for like eye rolling or tone of voice and things like that, like I feel like that blocks intimacy. I know how to like have conflict in a healthy way. I know how to like do all that stuff. And I feel like I feel like a lot of like you talk about prevention and compatibility. And I feel like when you are going into a new relationship with all that stuff, you're really building like such a solid foundation of the relationship that's what allows it to sustain and allows the ease for it to happen because it's like it's so sturdy, it's rock solid, like
Yeah.
and everyone knows clearly like where they're at in the relationship or how the relationship functions.
In our talk today, I'm hoping that we're able to communicate the idea that we're all flawed. We all have this rather unpleasant learning curve, and that we could do a whole lot better in our learning if we could find the right people who could give us the words to identify what it is we're feeling and going through and longing for and all of that. And I just don't see those conversations happening very commonly. And it's a shame, because we all crave love and we want to have happy, fulfilling relationships. And to get to the point where I have no shame about that. Yeah, I'd like to get married. I remember in my era when I was single, the most common sentence I would hear from people I would be dating, and I would say it myself, was, well, I'm not looking for a committed relationship right now.
Yeah.
And as if to, kind of almost like using those words, that particular sentence, as sort of a talisman to ward off any perception you might have that I'm a needy person. So I'm not really looking for a committed relationship.
I've used that line.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't at the time.
Well, yeah, although I think I could gently say this, without offending.
Get it to me.
Well, you might have been in denial, because I don't know that there is a time post-puberty that we're not all craving that. It's just that we don't know how to do it.
Well, I felt like I was saying it because I didn't know. And I felt like I was still learning. I was still processing my last relationship.
But that doesn't mean you don't want it or you weren't looking for it. Because even by accident, you would, stumble into a committed relationship.
Yeah. But
not once, not twice, but
I think I was afraid, though, because I was afraid to even do it because I didn't want to repeat a fourth round of this.
Oh.
And I felt like I kept thinking of the idea of me. I was like preheating in an oven, and it wasn't fully, or I was cooking still, and I wasn't fully cooked.
Yeah.
And I feel like it wasn't until this year of January 2026 where all the stuff ended. I was like, okay, that whole dating experience is over. I'm cooked, and now I'm ready.
No longer half-baked.
I'm no longer half-baked.
I'm done. I'm ready.
But I felt like if I hopped in, there were some things I wouldn't have gained if I stuck to that commitment to myself of not getting committed at that time.
Yeah, that for me is, when I hear you say that, I'm reminded of my own neediness, because in my neediness, I could be quite the people pleaser. So if she articulated a strong opinion about wanting what she wanted, I would usually be very accommodating.
Yeah, I had to say no, and it was heartbreaking. But I also...
But saying no is an important part of establishing our identities, right? And boundaries, and what works for her may not work for me. Like, I did date a woman who, I always pick on this idea, but I did date a woman who loved craft fairs.
And we all know you hate.
I really don't like going to them often. I occasionally, like maybe 3 times in a life, I think is enough. And the same with rock concerts. I'm very sensitive hearing. I don't want to lose my hearing, and I don't want to be wearing earplugs when I go to hear music. So yeah, I kind of skip out on really loud, concerts. But give me an opera, I'm cool. So obviously, when I talk like this, I'm well aware I'm the wrong guy for millions and, let's say, billions of women. But I think all of us, at whatever age, we have our fair market share of people who would find us really interesting. And I think if we could just get to that point where we let people know who we are, and that starts with discovering who we are, and that starts with building a life worth living. So, when you and I have engaged in that process of building a life worth living, then there's so much freedom there. And then we feel safe enough to let people know who we are. I love that. Now, I don't want to lead people on, because I don't think that that's such an easy path. It's years, even as a single person, it would take years to figure out who I am. And
I also think that's a spiritual journey too, like right? Bringing in that.
I think it has to be. I think it has to be called a spiritual journey. I don't, because it's really nothing else. There's nothing else like it, and it's a journey of one, right? I mean, I might date along the way, but it's really about my finding out who I am.
Yeah.
And once I found out who I am, it was really comfortable shutting up and letting other people share with me who they were. I didn't have to fill the air with words or, anything like that. It became, in fact, I would say that's one of the deepest pleasures in dating, is getting to know another human being, even if it's a human being who's not the right partner for me, because they have an endlessly fascinating story of how they came to be who they are.
Yeah. So what would you say, to wrap up, what would you say to people who are in unhappy marriages or relationships? Like, do you have any advice that you would give them? Like,
I hesitate to give anybody advice, but I know for me, I can share that all the good stuff started with my embracing the bad stuff as my reality. That my marriage was really shitty, that I was deeply unhappy, and that what I had built was unsustainable. And when I could accept that at any level, not even at the deepest level, this very painful set of truths, once accepted, I was then free to begin thinking, what do I want? But until we can accept our unhappiness, I don't think we can begin to build happiness.
Right. Well, I think that's the mic drop.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, good talking to you.
Same here, man. This was really good.
Yeah. Thanks.